When insects are stronger than super soldiers and a burglar becomes a hero, one podcast asks, could a sorry have changed anything? This is Super Sorry.
Welcome to Super Sorry Takes on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the podcast where we talk superheroes, big feelings, and all the mess that could have been avoided with a single honest conversation, or at least an apology.
We're Todd and Amber, creative partners who love movies, TV, and storytelling choices that make us think, wow, this did not have to go that way.
Today, we're diving into Ant-Man, a movie about cat burglars, complicated dad energy, underestimated women, and insects doing just about everything.
It's a heist movie where the real problem isn't the tech, it's pride, legacy, and what happens when I meant well replaces accountability.
As always, this is your spoiler warning. If you haven't seen Ant-Man, shrink yourself down, hail a flying ant somewhere, and come back when you're ready.
We're not experts, just fans with feelings, and if we miss something or get it wrong, we are super sorry.
It's time for our apology audit, the segment where we look at who should have apologized, who absolutely didn't, and who thought explaining themselves again but louder would somehow fix things.
Are you still talking about Ant-Man, or are you now talking about me? After rewatching Ant-Man, we tracked every missed apology, emotional dodge, and deeply avoidable decision, which is impressive because this movie is mostly about very smart people refusing to simply talk to each other.
Because when you're dealing with shrinking technology, corporate greed, parent-child trauma, and ants that fully understand teamwork, the right apology can change everything.
And the absence of a sorry can create a supervillain, sideline the most capable person in the room, and nearly level a city block. Are you ready for this?
I sure am. The apology audit is locked and loaded. But before I kick things off with my super sorry choice, this movie has kicked up some old memories for me, like a very traumatic one. When I was a kid, we had flying ants hatch in the pipes of our bathroom. And then they came out through the pipes, crawled all over the walls, like the walls were covered with flying ants. And we exterminated them. But then for weeks, when you would turn on the faucet of the bathtub, dead flying ants would come out. And I'm still traumatized, like so traumatized.
Did you name any of them? Like Anthony, maybe? Anthony? No? Okay.
Oh, no. No naming the ants. I was terrified. I think I was like 4 years old. So traumatized.
But now you've seen Ant-Man and everything's all hunky-dory.
I mean, I can appreciate a flying ant, I suppose. All right. Well, with that out of the way, my super sorry pick is an apology from Hank Pym to his daughter, Hope Van Dyne. And this is probably the clearest, most obvious choice for, the best apology, I think. The context of it is that, Hank is finally telling his daughter Hope the truth about his wife, Janet, and what happened to her instead of this sort of plane crash story or something that he tells. Instead, it's revealed that she is also a superhero or was a superhero called the Wasp, that she chose to go subatomic to save a mission, and she died a hero, essentially. So he admits that he basically spent years obsessed with trying to undo the lost, but also trying to keep Hope away from both the truth and his grief altogether. So he basically says, I was trying to protect you. I lost your mother. I didn't mean to lose you too. And while he doesn't say the words, I'm sorry, he is sorry. And he finally reveals this after withholding it for so long. He actually names the harm that he's done by withholding the truth. She responds with her own I'm sorry, which kind of turns this into a mutual apology. So the reason why I think this matters is that this is the moment, this is the apology that actually repairs their relationship. Hank admits that he was trying to protect her through abandonment, which is a weird thing, but that's what he's trying to do. And in this moment, he also finally trusts or acknowledges Hope as like an equal. Like, I think he sees finally what she is, as opposed to just kind of ignoring her intelligence and her sheer physical strength, because it was like so obvious. It's kind of crazy he didn't notice before this moment. And then it also reframes her role in a way that she directly is now set up to become the Wasp, which is what is revealed at the very end of the film. It gives us a little nugget. She's finally going to get her chance. So this was my top choice because it was an overdue moment. It was vulnerable and it was transformative.
Yeah, it's definitely the one that's the most full both directions, or I guess Hank never says it, but implies that he's sorry, and Hope actually says the words, I'm sorry. So it's definitely, I would agree, very complete, well thought out for the story, for the characters, for the development of the whole piece is a nice one.
Yeah, I think, it goes to show you that an apology can still be a good one, even if you don't say the words, I'm sorry or I apologize.
I'm going to go in a different direction. For mine, I'm going to have one that the words actually come out. It's probably the most immediate action to resolution of saying I'm sorry. And it's probably some of the most genuine. And it's basically the Pym technology security guards to Hank Pym when he shows up after, a decade or more away. He shows up at work and nobody recognizes him anymore. And they're like, asking for his IDs and, stopping him and whatnot. And so it's like, I'm so sorry, sir, please come in, So it's like, oh, I might lose my job because I don't recognize the owner of the company. So I definitely feel like that's fire. It's definitely genuine, very quick from like the wrong to trying to make it right by saying I'm sorry. So those are my fire picks. Is man, they're trying to save their job.
Yeah, it's understandable. They're probably truly and authentically remorseful in that moment. I know we can't have two choices, but it does kind of remind me of the moment where Scott goes to try to get the tech from the Avengers headquarters and gets caught by Sam Wilson Falcon, and Scott apologizes like nonstop the whole time. Sorry about this. Sorry about this. Sorry. Sorry. You seem like a really good guy.
Yeah. Right before he punches him or something. Yeah.
And it's kind of similar to the moment that you just shared. So I just wanted to throw that one out there.
Yeah. Very authentic in the moment. Apologies.
Yeah.
Truthful.
It shows both of these characters, I think, that they have an inherently strong, like, moral code. Like, they don't want to screw up. They don't want to make a mistake. They want to do the right thing. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. All right. Well, my sorry, not sorry, my pick for the worst apology. Gosh, I have two really good ones, but I think I'm going to go with the moment that Darren Cross as Yellow Jacket is fighting Scott as Ant-Man, and they're in Scott's daughter's bedroom. So Cassie, his daughter, and the stepdad Paxton is trying to get Cassie to safety, and Darren Cross as Yellow Jacket blocks them, and he says, sorry, sweetheart, you have to help daddy pay for his mistakes. And gosh, that's cruel.
Yeah.
It's like using like semi-gentle language to justify endangering a child, which is shocking. And then he shifts the blame to her dad. So it's not remorse at all. It's total manipulation. And I also think this is the moment, even though there are many moments before this, that it sets up Defiance Cross is completely irredeemable. Completely. Like, I would say it comes much, much earlier.
Yeah.
And sets off, of course, the moment where then Ant-Man Scott pushes him towards this sacrifice that he makes to go subatomic and survives. So that is my sorry, not sorry pick.
Yeah, when you brought up Darren, I thought you were going to go with a different one, which is when right after he demos the tech, and there's a character, Frank, who he basically says, oh, I'm so sorry. You have such deep concerns about the Yellow Jacket, Frank. And I think he is a little, probably genuinely sorry because he has to kill him now. So it's probably not according to plan. You want a little more risky when you start knocking off defense contractors or whatever, just to have your ultimate plan going in. But yeah, so I thought that was kind of the other one with Darren. But for my sorry, not sorry pick, Misfire, it's I guess towards the very beginning of the movie when Scott's working at Baskin Robbins and he's found out by his manager and he's just like apologizing over and over again. I'm sorry, kind of for lying from the application or whatnot. So he's saying the words, I'm sorry, but I don't know if Scott actually is sorry because he needs the job. So he kind of did it for a reason, did it purposefully, wasn't accidentally lying on the application. So that's my sorry, not sorry. Sorry that you found me out, but not sorry that I had to do this to try to get a job.
Yeah, I think he probably felt pretty backed into a corner.
Yeah.
He, at the beginning of the movie, when he gets out of prison, he's like, I got a master's degree. I'm going to get a job. No problem. And then, of course, cut to Baskin Robbins and the jerk trying to order burgers. I think he has a bit of remorse, but it's more remorse for the whole thing that he, did this burglary. He got caught, even though he's like still considered sort of a hero, sort of a Robin Hood, because the Baskin Robbins manager was still like, you did a cool crime,
yeah,
but you're still fired. So I think he's just sorry for the whole situation.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But I don't know if I think it's as bad of a sorry, not sorry, like a truly like cold-hearted one as my pick of Darren Cross's apology to Cassie.
Well,
I'm still going to advocate for that one.
Well, I think you're probably right. Anytime you're threatening violence to a child, that's got to be pretty rough.
Yeah, that trumps everything.
It's hard to, trumps everything. So it's hard to go against that one as opposed to just lying on your job application. Yeah, a little lesser stakes there. Yeah.
Well, let's go back to our super sorries then. My apology, of course, is Hank Pym to his daughter, Hope Van Dyne. And yours is?
The security guards at Pym Technology being sorry for not letting Hank in. I think, because now that I think of both mine are kind of job related. Sorry.
That must be where your mind is or something. Yeah. Thinking about job apologies.
Job
Do you
security.
have something you need to apologize for?
Yeah.
Well, I'm still going to choose mine because it's the heart of the story. It what makes everything shift. Also finally recognized as a female character for the strong and intelligent character she is that should have been the superhero to begin with. Though I did love Scott's line that he's like, there's a reason your dad chose me and it's because I'm expendable. Because he doesn't want to lose you. And I thought, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice to point out.
Yeah, definitely kind of lays everything out there in case anybody in the audience or any of the characters in the story are not aware of what's going on. It's pretty obvious why her father doesn't want her to do it because bad things happened to her mother when she was...
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, overall, there were a ton of apologies in this movie, much more than what we have seen in a lot of the other MCU movies up to this point. And that was just really refreshing to have characters say sorry.
Yeah, definitely. There was a good amount of them here from different characters too and everything. Sometimes it's just kind of one or two characters kind of leading the way, but there definitely was a lot of words of saying sorry in here. I think almost 20 or something in my count, and lots of different people too, even the bad guys. So a little bit of everybody.
We got the good guys, we got the bad guys, we got the supporting characters. Everyone is acknowledging hurt or wrong, which is good to see. All right, well, that wraps up our apology audit. And up next, apologies that could have been, where we imagine the conversations that never happened and how a well-timed I was wrong might have saved everyone a lot of trouble. We've talked through the apologies that do happen in Ant-Man, the rare moments of honesty, the almost moments of accountability, and the times someone gets very close to admitting they messed up.
But now we're shifting focus to what didn't happen. The apologies that got buried under ego, fear, and a lot of "this is for your own good" energy.
Welcome to Apologies That Could Have Been, our corner of the Super Sorry verse, where we imagine how things might have played out if someone had just said the right thing at the right time.
Think of it as an alternate timeline where geniuses communicate, mentors listen, and no one creates a supervillain because they refused a difficult conversation.
This movie is full of people who can invent world-changing technology, command armies of ants, and pull off impossible heists.
But somehow find it way harder to say, "I was wrong, you were right," or "Hey, I should have trusted you."
Which makes Ant-Man a perfect case study in how small moments of accountability could have made a big difference.
So in this segment, we'll talk through what should have been said, why it mattered, and how one simple apology might have shrunk a whole lot of damage.
And since most of us aren't dealing with shrinking suits or flying ants, except for me,
but are very good at avoiding awkward conversations,
this is where it gets super relatable.
I'll go first. My first apology that could have been is from Luis to Scott Lang, and for knowing that Baskin-Robbins always finds out and not telling Scott, because Scott's like, they found out Baskin-Robbins that I was lying on my application, and his response is, yeah, Baskin-Robbins always finds out. Thanks for the heads up. If you knew that already, maybe I would have, applied to Subway or some other, place, but no, he knew it. He didn't tell him, and he kind of wasted his time. So the character Luis there's, not the bestest friend there. Maybe now I think of it, maybe he's trying to sabotage him so he can do the stuff. So maybe it was on purpose, but yeah.
Pretty sure it was on purpose.
There's a lot of, not good friend things, encouraging him to do all this bad stuff. Not the best of friends, I guess, maybe more generally speaking, Luis to Scott for trying to get him fired and then have him do all the burglaring.
Though he does apologize, after they break in and all they find is, the Ant-Man suit. And he says, I'm sorry. I know you really needed a win. So he just had a delayed apology.
Yeah. So, okay. That's a good point. Yeah.
I think it's wild that Baskin-Robbins opted into this film to be that. I mean, I guess it's super funny, but I mean, they had to have opted in, right? I don't know. To be so heavily featured.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Anyhow, well, I'm going to go a little heavier than that pretty light apology that was needed. I think that Hank Pym needs to apologize to Scott for totally manipulating him and then blackmailing him to become Ant-Man. So Hank basically orchestrates Scott stealing the Ant-Man suit. So he sets that up, then him getting arrested. Though I think maybe that was actually Hope that did that. And then uses Scott's legal trouble and custody situation to force him into becoming Ant-Man. I think that's pretty messed up. I think it'd be nice if he said, I used you. I should have told you the truth or something. And here Scott is like apologizing the whole time. He's like, I'm sorry, I stole the suit. I'm sorry this. I'm sorry that. So Hank totally took advantage of him here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all for the greater good, trying to save society as a whole by making him do this. But I think I'll go one further on that with Hank to Scott or Maya that needs an apology. And that's for almost drowning him in the bathtub. It kind of allows him to get shrunk down there. And he's just like, okay, just see if you can get out of here. Well, if he doesn't, he's dead. Like, what's going on here? That he's like just willy-nilly doing his seeing if Scott can survive and potentially killing him.
But he knew he could survive. That's why he was chosen, He's the guy. Though I have no idea how he identified him as the chosen one. But, that's pretty unclear to me.
I think that's just from the newspaper clippings. He's been following him for a while, but knew he needed somebody that was going to do the right thing when push came to shove, I think. So
that's true. Okay, good point. Good point.
Because you don't want somebody that's going to steal the Ant-Man tech for himself. So
just like Darren.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually my next apology that I would have liked to have seen. I think some apologies could have been given between Hank and Darren Cross. And that could have resolved a lot in this situation where Darren builds his own particle tech to shrink down various things comes from. So if, Hank had really just acknowledged, Darren was his protege, and then he just abruptly pushes him away and denies him access to technology and this relationship. So basically the apology could have gone both ways. Like Hank could have owned that he pushed Cross away and then failed him as a mentor. And then Cross could have admitted that the rejection hurt instead of totally externalizing the pain through like control and cruelty and trying to become the greatest at this tech.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's also kind of interesting that he's repeating his mistakes he did with his daughter. He pushes her away. He denies her the technology. It's all like mirrored his relationship with Darren and his relationship with his daughter. He makes the same mistake multiple times. So I guess Scott's third time's the charm. I also think the lack of forethought is not just a Hank thing. Also, Darren, I believe, has a little lack of forethought. And he's like demoing the technology to these defense contractors or whatever. And he's never successfully completed the shrinking of organic matter down. So he really paints himself in the corner. Like, why is he pressuring this thing forward and kind of kicks off things into high gear? Because not even able to do his shrinking ray of people. He can do the suit, but not, not a goat, not a person, not anything. It's like, what's the deal there?
I think it was a lamb, not a goat. Just saying.
There's a difference?
Yes, there's a difference. Yeah, totally. This is the movie's biggest what if. Of course, there would be no movie if this had all happened. Okay. Anyhow.
So I have one situation I think that Hope needs to apologize for, and that's giving half of a Xanax to the crew so they pass out and listen to her dad's science talk or whatever. I mean, that's never a good thing to be unknowingly drugging people. So maybe a little apology there, but it's all for, again, the greater good. But
yeah, that's super questionable. I have nothing good to say about that one.
No rebuttal there.
No, absolutely not. Wow. That kind of even went pretty over my head. Now that I'm thinking about it, that's very messed up. Yeah. You kind of see those things now and you're like, oh yeah, that's just a plot point. Like, it's okay. It makes sense. But then when you pull it out, you're like, wait, that is not okay. Well, I would have liked to see an apology from S.H.I.E.L.D. to Hank Pym for the origin of why this whole story takes place, because S.H.I.E.L.D. is essentially trying to steal Hank's research. To me, like, if they had just apologized to begin with, they could have kept Hank in the family and, kept this tech moving. Like, maybe it would have been a difficult relationship and all that. Here he comes and, basically calls them out and they're like, yeah, so what? They don't apologize? That's just crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, the scene you're referring to is the opening scene in the movie.
Yes.
Where we have Peggy Carter, we have Howard Stark, and we have the character Mitch Carson, who's the one he punches in the face. And it just starts off with Hank Pym kind of coming in upset because he's basically kind of found them out that they're kind of trying to go behind his back and stealing the Pym particles. Yeah. So that's kind of sets it all off. It's just like, matter of fact, like that's just the way business is done, because it's like for the long-term goals is where we want to go. This is how we have to do it. And damned be what we got to do to get us there.
Yeah, that was a much better setup than I gave. Thank you.
No problem. I got one more apology that's needed, and this is from Luis at the end of the movie now, when he's undercover security guard at the Pym Technologies, breaking in, trying to steal the Yellow Jacket and all that. And he's told in very direct terms, do not whistle while you're on the job. Don't whistle while you're working. And he ignores them and ends up whistling It's a Small World, which is obviously a pretty on the nose callback of Disney and Marvel, and then being small and all that kind of stuff. So he's told not to do it. He does it anyways.
Luis has a lot of pretty amusing moments in this.
Yeah, he's definitely comic relief. Yeah.
Really nice to have him in this movie
Oh, yeah.
after some darker films that we've been watching. Yeah. Well, my last apology I would have liked to have seen is Scott to Hope. So, at the end of the film, Scott kisses Hope behind a closed door. Hank opens the door and finds them. And then Scott kind of gets just a little nervous and blames it on Hope and runs away, essentially.
Yep. Caught by her dad. Yeah.
Hank calls him out, but I just thought, it's actually a cute, sweet little moment and everything. But then he's like totally not taking responsibility and just running away after everything.
Yeah, there's definitely some regression by Scott to maybe a younger self of running away from his problems. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had some great apologies in this film. There were also lots of good moments that would have been ripe for the opportunity of an apology. So I would just say this is a really nice, well-balanced film.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's definitely probably one of the most of, not the most apologies in the movie, but there's still plenty of room to be there. So it shows you how much room for improvement there is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And that wraps up our journey through the Super Sorry-verse, our apologies that could have been, the conversations that might have lowered the emotional stakes, avoided some resentment, or stopped at least one person from becoming a supervillain. Welcome to Damage Diary, the segment where we track what got destroyed, estimate who's left holding the bill, and appreciate that this movie at least tries to keep the damage small.
Ant-Man is the MCU's rare reminder that not every superhero problem has to end with a city falling out of the sky. Sometimes it's just a building, or a helicopter, or a roof with a hole in it.
Which is so refreshing, but also still expensive by most people's standards.
The most damaging incident takes place at Pym Technologies headquarters in San Francisco, a high-security corporate campus housing experimental weapons tech.
Wait, yet another experimental weapons tech company in the MCU?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Well, the heist goes sideways, as heists tend to do, and the building is ultimately destroyed from the inside when the stolen Pym particles destabilize the structure and cause it to collapse into the quantum realm.
The headquarters appear to be completely lost, including labs, proprietary tech, and a truly irresponsible amount of unsecured science.
The destruction of Pym Technologies, the building, the tech, the research, plus a downed helicopter is estimated at about $20 million in property and infrastructure damage, which somehow counts as low in this universe.
And to be clear, that's still catastrophic for anyone who works there. It's just pocket change compared to Sokovia.
Then there's the final fight with Yellow Jacket, which shrinks the chaos down to a single suburban home.
A child's bedroom is wrecked, toys are weaponized, a Thomas the Tank Engine becomes an instrument of destruction, emotional scars form immediately.
Structurally, the house survives, but there's serious repair work ahead. A lot of paperwork and one really long conversation about whether superhero damage is covered by home insurance.
Conservatively, tens of thousands in damage, which again is nothing by MCU standards, but still a nightmare for a normal family.
And most importantly, Ant-Man avoids mass civilian casualties. No collapsing bridges, no citywide evacuations, no international incidents.
Which is why Scott Lang consistently ranks among the least destructive Avengers, specifically because his power allows him to infiltrate, sabotage, and fight without leveling entire neighborhoods.
When this movie works, it's because the damage stays personal, contained, visible, and specific.
A company destroyed, a villain neutralized, a family almost torn apart, then repaired.
When you add it all up, Ant-Man lands in the low tens of millions total damage range, making it one of the least financially destructive MCU films so far.
Which honestly raises a haunting question. What if more heroes just slowed down?
Because at the heart of Damage Diary, it isn't about the dollar amount. It's about the people.
Employees who lost jobs when Pimtech vanished, families living next door to superhero nonsense, kids who now think giant ants are okay to be family pets.
Superheroes move on. Cities rebuild, but someone always pays, even when the movie keeps things small.
With that in mind, let's zoom in on the human cost. I'll start us off with the first innocent bystander. And this is probably an obvious one. I'm sure it's the top of your board too. It's just the destruction of the Pimtech technologies in the building at the end of the movie. A lot of people are going to be out of the job, but as I mentioned earlier, I kind of focused on the security guards. Like, security guards didn't really do their job. They let a lot of bad stuff happen. People getting in that shouldn't have been in, and the building gets destroyed for it. So I just kind of feel bad for some of those Pim technology people working in the labs in the building. You know, we got janitorial services. We got a lot of people out of jobs, out of work here. And especially, top of mind is the security guards for, letting these people get in the building and destroying it.
I mean, there's also some individual security guards or guards that are impacted, like Luis, who incapacitates a guard during the heist. But I do love that he actually goes back for him before the building explodes. So at least like the main characters, the supporting characters are looking out for the people that they're impacting in that moment.
Yeah, what's interesting about Luis, at one point he punches that character out with like one punch, he knocks him out and he falls down, but they actually do a good job of setting it up at the beginning of the movie where Luis is picking up Scott from San Quentin. Scott just got in the fight with Peachy, who's the guy, he has to fight on the way out, the final boss level. And Luis kind of makes an offhand comment that he's the only one that ever knocked out Peachy with one punch, he says. So when he one punches the security guard, when some movies it's like unbelievable, like they hit one person, he's knocked unconscious, but they actually set it up that he is a pretty good one-punch knockout type of guy. So,
yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure I fully remembered that, but you're right. They did set it up.
Yeah.
Well, I also want to mention, besides all the Pim Tech employees, a smaller group of people, the people who were having a little barbecue in their backyard, little pool party. They look like they were having a lovely time. And then Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man crash into their family pool. They're fighting. There's destruction outside. There's destruction inside because they're breaking windows and tumbling in the interior and then back to the exterior. So we've got property destruction, trauma, total confusion and fear for this family. But I also love that like they don't just completely run away to begin with, because there's this shot at the very end where Scott turns to like say something to them and then they freak out and they run away because they've just been watching all the chaos. Like, what the hell is going on? Totally impacted, but it's a funny moment. They play it for some nice laughs.
Yeah, they're just having a good old time in their backyard, and I just don't feel like they're going to have the same amount of fun in the future just hanging out in the backyard, because who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're not going to touch that again.
And for my next kind of damage, I guess another obvious one is just the destruction of the character Paxton, the cop, and his house. And we got the Thomas the Tank Engine blowing out and hitting the street, and all this neighborhood destruction going on in that suburban neighborhood there in San Francisco. So it's kind of feel bad for all the neighbors and everybody around. A lot of people impacted for this damage because of the threat of violence to the child by Darren, who's now in the Yellow Jacket outfit.
Yeah, not to mention like all of Cassie's toys that totally get destroyed in that scene too. Kind of feel bad for her. But I do want to call out some unusual innocent bystanders. And these are the little lambs that Darren Cross uses in his experiments instead of mice. And Hope calls him out. She's like, I thought we were using mice for these experiments. So to me, like, this is pretty like a chilling ethical line. And obviously this can be a challenging subject. People stand in different areas in terms of testing on animals, but the visual of experimenting on these lambs is really messed up. And it's really interesting because I think this is the moment where Hope like fully turns away from him. Like that was her line. And I think that's so interesting.
Yeah, it shows the escalation. Like I said at one point,
and like desperation.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry.
I think it shows the desperation of Darren at that point too. just the escalation of it. And I think that's another example of kind of him just going too far, too fast.
Yeah. So I want to call out one more innocent bystander. She's not a minor character. I would say she's a major character, and that's Cassie, Scott's daughter. Mm-hmm. She really gets caught up in all this chaos. I know we talked a little bit about how, Yellow Jacket uses her as collateral to try to take out Scott, but she's like the emotional ground zero of the movie. And so to me, I just want to mention, because she's going to be impacted. She seems to be relatively fine throughout. She seems like a quirky little kid who, even though all these crazy things that have happened, she seems okay. Is so much so that she has this giant ant as a pet at the end of the movie, and she seems like fine as far as I could tell. She's got her family unit together. She's got her dad. She's got her mom. She's got her stepdad and this new giant ant pet. So nice to see, I guess, that at least she has some resolution. I just don't know how messed up she's going to be down the line.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the innocent bystanders, we're making references to kind of some future, trauma and psychologists and psychiatrists they might need to spend some money on. But she seems pretty even keeled more than any by character in the movie. And like you said, with her pet ant and everything, no problem. She's moving forward. So I think she's hopefully going to survive this too unscathed.
Yeah, she seems like quite a resilient little kid. Before we close out, though, our innocent bystanders, I do want to mention our Stan Lee cameo. We see him at the very end of the film. I was almost like, where is Stan Lee? Because at the very end of the film, he's a bartender, the last of Luis's rapid fire storytelling montages. And he's shown in this flashback scene, and he's mouthing the words crazy, stupid, fine along to a story about a woman. And he's like nodding along or whatever. So that's our Stan Lee cameo for this movie.
I think this is the first one, too, where he actually doesn't speak. It's just, you hear Luis, kind of speaking for him. So it's definitely interesting. A different take on the Stan Lee cameos. Yeah.
How interesting for that actor to be like, Stan Lee mouthed the words that I said. Well, that's Damage Diary. A reminder that even when the crisis is contained and the hero gets a win, someone is still filing insurance claims, getting their roofs repaired, and dealing with their new giant pet ant.
Up next, our biggest takeaway. What Ant-Man is really poking at underneath the heists and shrink rays, questions about power, responsibility, and what happens when people with brilliant ideas refuse to slow down and listen.
Ant-Man isn't really about shrinking technology or a high-stakes heist. It's about second chances and what happens when people stop assuming they know best and actually start listening.
Scott doesn't want to be a hero. He wants to be a good dad. Hank wants to protect the world but struggles to admit the damage he caused along the way. Hope wants to be trusted with the responsibility she's already earned.
Beneath the jokes and the insects, this movie is asking what power looks like when it's shared instead of hoarded, and what responsibility looks like when it's paired with humility instead of control. Which brings us to our biggest takeaway. Ant-Man shows us something we don't get much elsewhere in the MCU. Progress doesn't come from domination or spectacle. It comes from cooperation and people being willing to follow instead of insisting to take the lead.
This movie shows learning new things is how we grow. Scott succeeds not because he's the smartest person in the room, but because he listens, adapts, and knows when the plan isn't about him.
The accountability here isn't performative or world-shaking. It's practical. It looks like trusting the people around you, respecting their expertise, and staying present long enough to earn second chances.
And that's what Ant-Man adds to the MCU. Sometimes the heroic act isn't thinking bigger, it's knowing when to go small.
And that brings us to the end of Ant-Man. The heist is complete, the ants are victorious, and the smallest hero proves that size isn't the thing that matters most.
Today we tracked the damage, talked through the missed apologies, and explored how things improve when people stop trying to do everything alone.
So we'll leave you with this. Sometimes the strongest move is listening first. So where could you take a moment to pause and listen to make room for someone else?
If you're enjoying the show, follow us, leave a review, and share it with a friend who appreciates a good apology or a good ant joke.
Next time on Super Sorry, we're stepping into Captain America Civil War, a story about friends who stop listening, sides that harden into lines, and how one disagreement turns into a fight no one actually wins. Until then, I'm Amber.
I'm Todd.
And we are Super Sorry. Super Sorry is written and hosted by Amber and Todd. Produced by A Super Sorry LLC. Music by Jam Studio. Special thanks to MCU Wiki, Bustle, and Comic Book Resources for serving as sources for Damage Diary. Your support helps us keep asking the hard questions and saying the hard apologies. Thanks for tuning in and sharing with friends. And if you're listening from San Francisco, the Quantum Realm, or your child's bedroom, we are super sorry.
One last thing. Did you notice at the end of the movie, the Mitch Carson character, who's the character at the very beginning that works for S.H.I.E.L.D. and is kind of working for somebody else and helping out Hydra get the cross particles, the yellow version of the PIM particles? Do you notice he actually grabs, steals a vial, and runs off at the end? Wonder what happens. I guess we have to stay tuned to find out what happens to Mitch Carson and the cross particles.
Super Sorry is not affiliated with Marvel Entertainment, Marvel Studios, the Walt Disney Company, or Disney+. As of this recording, all Marvel characters mentioned in this podcast are the property of the Walt Disney Company.